Part 42. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 411. Zhangzai, I leave it to you. Just cut the palm of your right hand and press it on her back. I have already arranged it for you. After entering, the master of the beast god palace pulled Zhangzai over and put the position was given to him. Quick. Under his urging, Zhangzai did not hesitate at all. The 9 immortals were drying up, how could he hesitate? Without looking, he cut the palm of his right hand and pressed it on her back. For a moment, countless blood-colored totem lines wrapped around her hands, and then wrapped around her body. In just a short moment, the blood-colored lines seemed to be like ropes, pulling Zhangzai, Juxian, and the ones in her belly. The little lives are completely tied together. The family of 3 seemed to be in the center of the whirlpool. At that moment, although his young and vigorous energy and blood were nourishing the body of the 9 immortals, Zhangzai was happy because he finally helped. Seeing that her blood had recovered and she had the strength to continue practicing, and that the blood cocoon around her was gradually solidifying, Zhangzai finally breathed a sigh of relief. I'm here, Zhangzai said softly. She knew that it was his palm and that was his breath. They had mingled together countless times, so how could they not know that he was approaching? Maybe after having him, she would feel more at ease and have more inner strength to break through the limits of fate. Even though Zhangzai consumed a lot and became dizzy after a while, he gritted his teeth and persisted. He heard that if he consumed too much, his lifespan might be damaged, but Zhangzai was not afraid at all. Even if he consumed it for 30 years, he would be able to replace it. He was very willing to give her 1 or 2 years of life. This totem array is full of blood, and the blood moon in the sky is like a grinning mouth, ruthless and indifferent. Everything in the world is a sea of blood. A chilling atmosphere circulated in everyone's heart. The older the people get, the more people come here and see this scene. What will the sect master do with Zhangzai and the cursor? I don't know. It was the beast god palace master who was standing in that position before, but now it's Zhangzai. Could it be that the ancient son of God wants to personally kill the cursor and sacrifice it to the ancient god? What kind of hatred is this? Could it be that the cursor Hongxing cheated on her? Haha. It's very possible. Legend has it that this woman survived only because of her coquettishness. People couldn't help but laugh, which was completely contrary to the solemn atmosphere. By this time, many divine attendants and even holy divine attendants had arrived. For example, Feng Xiaoao and Feng Xiaoxiao, the lonely Sikong Jin, and the people from the Shijian family. Ling Qingtian heard about what happened here and brought Lu Dingxing and Baishan Jin. After arriving here, he met with Gu Xianying, Ruo Xiaoyu, Qiu Yi, and Wan Qian. During this period, Zhangzai was in a bad mood, so he just let them practice in peace and did not tell them too much about the 9 immortals. In fact, they can only act in a hurry. Now that they are here and hearing so many comments, they are even more anxious. Uncle Ling, what on earth are they doing? Ling Qingtian shook his head. Feng Xiaoao and Feng Xiaoxiao came closer at this time, and he communicated with Ling Qingtian. Zhangzai seems to be helping the 9 immortals. What do the sect masters mean by helping them? Feng Xiaoao said. Didn't Zhangzai tell you about this incident? Ling Qingtian asked. No. They could hear what the priests were discussing, saying that the 9 immortals were used to sacrifice the ancient gods. They definitely didn't believe it, because if that was the case, Zhangzai would not have such a dedicated expression. Moreover, Zhu Shen stood beside him and did not move, only slightly nervous. It should be fine, don't worry, Feng Xiaoao said. It would be a bit unbelievable if the first god performed such a big ceremony to help them. In my impression, it seems that the first god has never been so concerned about anything, right? Ling Qingtian thought about it, frowning slightly. Last time, we brought the 9 immortals into the first god realm and asked the 9 gods to accompany them. Now that they are causing such a big commotion on this blood moon night, they must be trying to get it right in one step and break the divine curse to a certain extent. It seems that if you practice the art of rebirth to a certain extent, you can extend your life for 1 or 2 years. The two discussed it for a while and finally felt more relaxed. Although the people around him were laughing at the impending death of the god curse, they knew the truth and it didn't seem like the problem was too big. But I always feel that they all seem to be bad guys, Ruo Xiaoyu said with red eyes. Xiaoyu, don't talk nonsense, Gu Xianying said softly. Oh, but my brother and sister-in-law are so pitiful. Ruo Xiaoyu has been in no mood for the past 2 months. As they watched, the bloody light became stronger and stronger. The light of the blood moon still penetrated the totem array, shining brightly on everyone's face, making the entire Shenzong look like hell. Everyone was grinning like a devil, looking at Zhang Zizai and Zhu Xian. Time continued to pass, and the voices of ridicule continued. Zhang Zizai continued to feel dizzy. This was still a bit exhausting for him, and he was a little unsteady on his feet. But at this time, he still gritted his teeth and used the 9 immortals to swallow his own blood and maintain the rebirth art. While practicing, Zhang Zizai saw hope when she saw that the blood cocoon around her was getting thicker and thicker. Victory is right in front of you. I don't know when it started, but Zhang Zizai suddenly felt something vibrating in the palm of his right hand, as if there was a worm stuck between his palm and Juxian's back. But he couldn't take it out to look at it, because once he let go, Juxian would lose his blood and chi support and would fall into aging, and it was very likely that his efforts would fail. But he didn't expect that the thing on his palm would twist more and more obviously, and it was still vibrating. During this process, Zhang Zizai also saw that there seemed to be an extra face on the blood cocoon beside Juxian. It was a skull that kept appearing and disappearing on it, and it felt like it was staring at Zhang Zizai with a grin. So many strange changes made Zhang Zizai a little confused. That skull was Juxian's magic spell. I didn't expect it to appear at this time. Did it leave her body? This is impossible. The strange thing on the palm vibrated more strongly, and streams of black air actually came out of the palm. Chu Shen, there seems to be something on my palm, Zhang Zizai said hurriedly. Xuanhuan Chushan was presiding over the totem formation. She said calmly, it doesn't matter. Just don't affect your supply of blood and chi to her. She looked very normal. Zhang Zizai was even more confused. He suddenly remembered that there was a black key on the palm of his right hand. That was given to him by Xuanhuan Chushan, saying that it could increase the speed of cultivation. The thing that is vibrating now must be this black dragon-shaped key. The black dragon-shaped key, the cosmic level dragon totem. It always seems that there is a connection. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 412. This is the first time that Zhang Zizai feels something is not right. But he can't explain clearly what is wrong. Juxian is still working hard to practice the rebirth technique, Jushan is also watching outside, and Xuanhuan Chushan and others are exhausting their efforts to help Juxian. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Everything looks so normal. But why do I suddenly feel creepy in my heart? Buzz. The black dragon-shaped key in his left hand vibrated, and all the totem patterns wrapped around him and Juxian trembled. Then, the skull on the blood cocoon also trembled. The continuous tremors seemed to have touched some kind of mechanism. With a loud buzzing sound, there was suddenly an invisible pressure from the sky, suppressing Zhang Zizai's head. He looked up, and there was nothing on it. An illusion. When his blood and chi were exhausted, he thought it was normal to have an illusion due to fatigue. He took a deep breath and continued to provide blood and chi for Juxian. Unexpectedly, it vibrated again at this time. With the black dragon-shaped key as the leader, everything felt like it was vibrating, and then the pressure appeared above his head again. Zhang Zizai looked up, but there was still nothing, but he vaguely heard someone outside exclaiming, and saw Jushin's expression was a little puzzled. This time he did not lower his head, but watched intently. Finally, the black dragon-shaped key vibrated again. Buzz. This time, Zhang Zizai saw it clearly. At the moment of the vibration, a phantom of a bronze gate appeared above his head. The bronze gate, with countless reliefs on it, was rusty and ancient and eternal. Zhang Zizai was stunned, because this gate was exactly the same as what he saw in his dream. He had dreamed of this bronze gate more than a dozen times in total. He had often dreamed of it since he came back from the Wushan battlefield, but he was worried about the 9 Immortals and didn't pay attention to it. He never expected to see this bronze gate in the real world. Although it was just a phantom, and it only flashed for a moment, Zhang Zizai saw it very clearly and was absolutely correct. And in the process of his shock, the bronze gate flashed again. He felt a little numb. How could the bronze gate in the dream appear in reality? It should be since I got this key that I started dreaming about this bronze gate, key, door. This makes it easy to remember that the key exists to open the door. Zhang Zizai had a worse premonition in his heart. He began to think, Xuanhuan Chushan, is she so kind? He squinted at her, trying to find a flaw in her. He asked, First God, what is this door? Xianyan First God said, this is the gate of rebirth, which leads to the world of death. When a person dies, the soul will pass through the gate of rebirth and enter the world of death. She is a divine spellcaster, and there is a lot of death energy on her body. If she can prolong her life, it means that she can escape from the gate of rebirth. This is a normal phenomenon of practicing the Rebirth Sutra. Next, the gate of rebirth will be farther and farther away from her. She answered quickly. But then, the gate of rebirth became clearer and clearer in the repeated vibrations. The interval between vibrations became shorter, and the original illusion gradually became real. People began to exclaim for this door. At this moment, the mountain has disappeared for the same amount of time as it appeared. It may not be long before it will always exist. Gate of rebirth, Zhang Zizai's mind was a little confused. She said it would disappear, but the gate of rebirth became more and more real, and Zhang Zizai clearly felt that this gate was very scary. His key was the key to open this gate. He even saw a keyhole. He even saw a blood-red skull pattern around the keyhole, which was exactly the same as Juxian's magic spell. There was a magic spell and a keyhole on the door. Juxian had the secret of rebirth and the magic spell, and he had the blood of the dragon totem and this black dragon-shaped key. Why do you feel that these are all designed conditions? At this time, he suddenly had a very bad premonition in his heart, especially at this time, she suddenly heard Juxian's cry of pain, which was different from before. After passing through the blood cocoon, Zhang Zizai saw that she was actually covered with dense magic spells. There is a problem. There must be a problem. Zhang Zizai's eyes were suddenly full of blood. He saw that before the blood cocoon was successful, Juxian's condition was not good, and she was in great pain. The blood cocoon began to be covered with dense spells, and at the same time, the spells on the bronze gate were also full of blood. At this time, the blood moon light on Juxian began to move towards the bronze gate, which meant that the light of the blood moon shone on the two of them, and then moved to the bronze gate. The spells began to gather. Juxian murmured in the blood cocoon, and Zhang Zizai even saw that her flesh and blood began to crumble under the disintegration of the spells. Zhang Zizai suddenly wanted to pull out his palm, because he found that he might also be a link in this, and maybe if he broke it, this strange process would disappear. But he suddenly found that the palm he could easily take away before could not be pulled away after the bronze gate began to solidify. Those blood-colored totem patterns completely entangled him and Juxian. Maybe he could have stopped everything before, but now it was too late. This ritual had reached its final stage. Chu Shen. This ritual was not to save her at all. You used us, the divine spell, and my dragon totem to open this door, Zhang Zizai turned back suddenly. Until now, he had guessed everything. The surging anger was all written on his face. Xuanhuan Chushen was slightly stunned. She suddenly smiled faintly and said, "You are quite smart, but it's a pity that you know it a little too late. You had nearly half an hour of interruption time before, but now everything is close to success, and you are powerless to turn the tide." She actually admitted it directly. It can be seen how great her grasp of the moment is. The plain smile on her face was insidious to what extent. It seemed that what she was doing now was a trivial matter. "Zhang Zizai, it's best if you don't understand. In the future, you will still be the ancient son of God, and the ancient son of God with the greatest contribution in history. Because of you, our divine sect opened the evolution realm. You have done a lot of good deeds. Unfortunately, with your personality, you will definitely not let go of today's hatred, so I may say, it's a pity," she said with a smile. "Everything can no longer be reversed. Juxian's body is about to be transformed into a divine spell and merged into the door, and he will be controlled by all of this to open the door called the evolution realm. This is not the door to rebirth, but the door to evolution," the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace said in a deep voice, with a teasing smile on his face. He didn't say it too loudly, so that the disciples could not hear it, but his joy was all written on his face. Although the other palace masters had some guilt on their faces, they still said, "Zhang Zizai, you died a worthy death for opening the door of evolution for the divine section. The younger generations of the divine sect will all praise your merits. It's a pity that if you had been kept in the dark today, we would have told you that her death was an accident and we were powerless to change it. As long as you don't hate us, you can still have a bright future. Unfortunately, you died because of your cleverness." Zhang Zizai, it's amazing. He never thought that the bronze gate in his dream was the key to all this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 413. They never thought of saving the 9 immortals. From the beginning to the end, they thought about using the 9 immortals to open the door of evolution under the blood moon on the 6th day of the 6th lunar month. The most important condition for opening the evolution world is to get the evolution key. I found this thing that disappeared for hundreds of thousands of years, which can be regarded as the merit of my ancestors. The second condition is the lifeblood of the God Curse Master. There happened to be a God Curse Master in the world, so I called her back to the divine section. The third condition is that someone with a cosmic dragon totem must hold the evolution key to open it, and it must be a young person. Your appearance is simply God preparing these conditions for me. Tell me, what is the possibility that I will not give you more sun talismans, design a good rhythm, let you become the son of the ancient gods, and send the evolution key to your hands? All this is the truth, everything she arranged. No wonder the competition for the son of the ancient gods was suddenly brought forward, and no wonder Zhang Zizai was given the clue of sun. It made it easier for him to get the sun talisman and make progress. No wonder he was able to become the son of the ancient gods so smoothly. Of course, the Rebirth Sutra is also a condition for opening. She worked hard and practiced the Rebirth Sutra to the qualified standard. Half of the credit for opening the door to the evolutionary world today lies with her. The Lord of the Heavenly God Palace beside him laughed dumbly. He shook his head and looked at Juxian and said, "Otherwise, you would naively think that my son Tianyuan was killed by you, and you could live to this day. Many years ago, Xuanhuan Chushan got the key to evolution, so he had to keep this spellcaster. Next, wait for her to be close to 30 years old and the power of the spell reaches its peak." Coincidentally, a young man appeared at this time, and his talent happened to be against the sky, just meeting all the conditions for opening the evolutionary world. Your appearance is arranged by the ancient gods. It is the ancient gods who let us open the evolutionary world. It's a pity that you are not stupid. It's a pity that everyone can see that you, Zhang Zizai, are a vengeful person, so after today, we definitely can't keep you. Starting tomorrow, the new ancient son of the gods is Yishan Xuanhuan Chushan side. A divine light appeared in her eyes. She looked up at the sky, her heart full of gratitude to the ancient gods. They had been hiding for such a long time, and they must have felt uncomfortable. So when Zhang Zizai saw through it, even the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace began to vent. Tianyuan, today Dad will avenge you and turn the cursor into lifeblood, forever imprinted on the gate of this evolutionary world, and never reincarnate. The Lord of the Heavenly God Palace laughed crazily. After so many years, he finally waited until today. Zhang Zizai thought too simply. How could he wait until today to avenge his son's murder? This conspiracy was so deeply hidden that even the 9 immortals and the 9 gods were completely deceived by them. From beginning to end, it was all arranged and controlled by them. This is not the divine sect, this is simply the gathering place of demons. Zhang Zizai engraved all this in his heart. In fact, he has never hated some people so deeply. Even the Flame Dragon Emperor, he actually didn't hate him, there was no such life and death hatred. But now, his only dream in this life is to tear these people in front of him into pieces. Poor little life, it's really not the right time to appear. Fortunately, it's only 6 months old. Although it's miserable to die with his parents, he has no mind after all. Xuanhuan Chushan shook his head helplessly. The ancient god asked us to care for all living beings. If the matter of the evolution world is not too important, we will not give up this little life. This will damage the morality of our Shen zone, but there is no way. This passage is said in a sanctimonious manner, but it's like a sword stabbing Zhang Zizai's body. At the same time, it also stabbed his heart. All the conspiracies have been revealed, but at this time, he can't control his body. It can even be said that he buried the 9 immortals to hell with his own hands. This can't be blamed on him. He is only 17 years old, and the few people in front of him, one is a few hundred years old Chushan, and the other 5 are the masters of the top palaces of the origin continent. They stand at the peak of all living beings, 100 times more powerful than the Flame Dragon Emperor. How to deal with them? How to escape from their clutches? They had been planning for more than 10 years, so how could they let Zhang Zizai escape? Even Juxian and the others themselves did not realize that this would be a trap. You call yourself the divine sect, you show yourself to be kind and righteous, but you do all kinds of crazy things. Zhang Zizai's eyes were bloodshot, and a strong black aura burst out from his body. Those bloody lines entangled on his face, making him extremely terrifying at this moment. You are despicable and shameless, claiming to be the messenger of the ancient gods, but you don't care about the lives of living beings, even the life and death of the fetus, just for your own interests. This was the last thing Zhang Zizai expected. He thought that the people in power in such a bright place like the divine sect were all decent people. How could he have expected that the Xuanhuan Chushan smiled and seemed to care about himself, but in fact he didn't even let the fetus go. She just wanted to open the evolutionary world that was extremely important to her. At that moment, his anger was unprecedented in his life. He watched with his own eyes that his beloved was about to vanish into thin air, and his lifeblood was locked in the gate of evolution, never to be reborn. Perhaps, his child would also follow his mother into this eternal pain. What kind of ambition could be so cruel to a person? And not just one person, but also an unborn baby. What did they do wrong? God's curse, isn't it innate? This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Zhang Zizai was trembling all over. The person he loved, his child, blood flowed from his eyes. At this time, he was already a beast, and all his thoughts were filled with blood and hatred. Zhang Zizai, complete your mission and I will let you be passed down through the ages, Xian Yinchu said. Is this your gift to me? Do you think it can be compensated? Zhang Zizai sneered miserably. Almost she waved her hand. At this time, the totem array was already running automatically, and it seemed that she was no longer needed. Pretty much. These 4 words were deeply engraved in Zhang Zizai's mind. He couldn't help but laugh. This woman's pride was so ridiculous. She may really think that the world is all under her control. Kill the 9 gods first. She raised her eyebrows slightly and said to the master of the beast god palace outside. The master of the beast god palace is now full of vitality and blood, but he is no longer as exhausted as before. How scheming are they? It was obvious that Zhang Zizai could go up directly, but in order to eliminate his suspicion, he would rather let the master of the beast god palace go up first, and then pretend to be helpless in the middle. At that critical moment, could Zhang Zizai not go up? Moreover, after going up, he will definitely try his best and will not have any doubts at all. Only in this way can the evolutionary world appear. He only needs to have a little doubt. If he does not cooperate in the first half hour, Chu Shen and the others will fail today. Therefore, in order to coax Zhang Zizai, they were careful today. Before the 9 immortals die, they must first kill the 9 gods who heard everything. Except for them, no one will know that Xuanhuan Prime God used their lives to open up the world of evolution. They would only say that something went wrong in extending the lives of the 9 immortals, which resulted in their death. As for the 9 gods, the master of the beast god palace could easily obliterate them so that others could not see it. But they didn't see that the 9 gods were filled with demonic energy at this moment. His eyes were like abyss, with infinite demonic energy gushing out. You all must die. His voice seemed to come from the ancient abyss, heavy and terrifying. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 414. The changes of Jushin were something that no one, including Zhang Zizai, had ever thought of. He was just an ordinary divine servant in the divine seal realm, and his usual task was to guard the tower. He had just passed the divine servant assessment not long ago. He was a lonely person, and except for the killing that year, no one had ever taken care of his existence. But at this moment, he changed. He was outside and heard everything that Xuanhuan Chushan and the others said. Zhang Zizai had a bloody hatred in his eyes, and he had a crazy riot in his eyes. He was a silent man who lived in silence forever. But many years ago, when someone bullied his sister, he did not hesitate to kill everyone. To this day, he has never changed. At this moment, amid the exclamations of countless people from the divine sect, Jushin, who would have been easily killed by the lord of the beast god palace, suddenly changed drastically. His body was actually swelled. His skin was directly torn, and a black monster crawled out from it. As the monster came out, it grew bigger, accompanied by a monstrous demonic energy. The demonic energy instantly spread, and it was several times stronger than Zhang Zizai's Avasai Hell Talisman. What kind of monster is this? He is in human form, with black scales all over his body, extremely thick arms and claws as sharp as blades. He has a hunched body, and there are spikes coming out from his spine. His head is roughly triangular in shape, with extremely sharp teeth and 2 bloody long horns. The most terrifying thing is his face, with a total of 9 blood-red eyes. The 9 eyes, arranged randomly, some large and some small, look ugly and scary, but the bloodthirstiness and coldness in the eyes are also scary enough. If such a monster is just the size of an ordinary person, it would not be shocking. What is really shocking is that after he tore his skin, he quickly grew larger. In a blink of an eye, his body is as tall as the 5-story beast god tower. Such a huge beast, no one in front of him is as big as his claws. His body is covered with a lot of blood-red lines. A lot of demonic energy surged out of his body and engulfed him. This is a huge monster surrounded by demonic energy. Oh my god, what is this? It seems to be the 9 gods. What on earth is he? So scary. Run away. People exclaimed, and the whole Shen zone began to riot for a while. This huge monster could be seen from a long distance. Some people came here to watch the excitement, and some people fled far away. Suddenly such a shocking change, Feng Xiaoyao hurriedly said, "You stay here, I'll go over and take a look." He asked Ling Qingtian to take care of Feng Xiaoxiao and the others, and he was about to leave, but he didn't expect that at this moment, two figures blocked him in front of him. "Feng Xiaoyao, the sect master is doing something, you'd better not mess up," Shi Jian sneered. He looked over there, although he didn't know what happened, but it seemed that Zhang Zizai was in a very angry mood. The other person was Sikong Jin. Since he intercepted, he would not let Feng Xiaoyao go up to make trouble. Feng Xiaoyao couldn't move, and the others couldn't get close. Lian Hualei, Jun Muxi, Jun Jiansheng, and others were all confused at this time. They found Feng Xiaoxiao and others in the crowd and came over to ask what was going on. Yaishan and Tianyi also appeared in the distance. They looked at the huge monster with deep eyes. "Yesterday, my godfather told me that if everything goes well today, I will still be the son of the ancient gods tomorrow," Yaishan said lightly. "Really?" I said, "how could Dad not take action? Zhang Zizai is finished, but I don't know what this monster is," Tianyi sneered. Like them, all eyes were focused on the huge monster transformed by the 9 gods. As soon as the monster appeared, it fought with the Lord of the Beast God Palace. People certainly didn't expect that the monster transformed by the 9 gods could actually compete with such a terrifying figure as the Lord of the Beast God Palace. Boom! The body of the monster had an extremely terrifying power, with surging demonic energy and swift movements. It didn't take long for the two to fight. What was amazing and terrifying was that the Lord of the Beast God Palace was actually shaken away. Then the monster rushed over, he wanted to smash the entire totem formation. Roar! He roared, and the whole sky island was shaking. "Evil beast, don't even think about destroying it." Seeing this, Xuanhuan Chushan ordered the remaining 4 palace masters to continue to preside over it, and she rushed out of the totem formation and attacked. Chushan has taken action. This is a world-shaking event for the divine sect. In all these years, who has ever seen Chushan take action? Chushan takes action, this monster is dead. I really don't know how these 9 gods can become such a monster, but it's really scary. Even the Beast God Palace Master is not his opponent. This monster is too crazy, like he doesn't want to die. What does he want to do? Under the gaze of the people, the black bloody behemoth fought madly with the seemingly tiny Xuanhuan Chushan. Xuanhuan Chushan looked very small, but he was able to stop the monster and prevent him from getting close. Quickly fight and make a quick decision, so as to avoid more troubles at night. "I can stop him." Xuanhuan Chushan turned back coldly and said to the 4 palace masters. The palace master of the beast god joined in and filled the position of Xuanhuan Chushan. For a while, the totem formation continued to operate. In the blood cocoon, Juxian's arm began to dissipate. She seemed to be in a dream, slowly losing her breath, and her lower abdomen was also extremely calm. Under the blood moon, death came. Zhang Zizai was still here, watching the monster transformed by the 9 gods, charging like crazy, but was repeatedly knocked away by the Xuanhuan Chushan, shaking the surrounding ground and forests into a mess. He didn't understand why the 9 gods could transform into such a terrifying existence. Every time his huge body fell to the ground, it was earth-shaking. He also didn't understand why the eyes of the 5 palace masters were so ferocious at this time for the gate of the evolution world. The palace master of the heavenly god could understand, but the palace master of the beast god, there was only indifference in his eyes. It turned out that all the care before was fake. These old foxes, each one is so disgusting. He smiled. In the extreme hatred, he entered another state. In his chest, anger was surging. The teeth had bitten through the lips, the nails had pierced the palms, but they had forgotten the taste of pain. Only hatred and anger, like endless sparks, began to spread. Those flames engulfed everything of Zhang Zizhe. A volcano, suppressed to the extreme, erupted at this moment. For a moment, his whole world was engulfed by flames. It was also engulfed by the smell of blood. His eyes were locked tightly in the blood cocoon. That was his wife and children. What is the purpose of practicing in one's life? He didn't really want to become a god. He just wanted to protect the people he loved, to make them happy and worry-free. That was enough. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 415. Maybe today, I will die. But if this life ends like this, then he doesn't want reincarnation. How can a person be bullied like this? Unwilling, unconvinced. His bloody eyes fell on Juxian. When we first met, she teased me, her charming manners, and his youthful vigor, all vividly remembered. Later, we finally had flesh and blood, the joy of love, such indulgence and wantonness, how could I forget it for a lifetime? Those 2 months of sightseeing, her smile and joy, will never be forgotten. Jur, what do you think people live for? What kind of life can be without regrets? He murmured to himself, asking her. In fact, he was also asking himself. Fate is unfair. Who arranged the fate that allows you to live only 24 years at a time and leave with regrets? Which beast arranged the fate that allows you to end only at this moment? Who are those damned people? He didn't want to stop. Red eyes, looking at the world, looking at the blood moon. And the priests of the divine sect, looking at him with disgust. In fact, they hate the divine curse, because it is said that the divine curse is cursed by the ancient gods, so it is naturally worthy of disgust. But why are they so righteous, but so ruthless? She is very kind, she has never done anything to harm the world. Their child is only a few months old, what can he do to harm the world? He is not even born yet, why should he be reborn forever? A bunch of beasts. Ha, a bunch of beasts. Zhang Zizhe covered his forehead and laughed tremblingly. A bunch of beasts, not just the palace masters and Xuanhuan Chushan in front of him. It's not just those who look at them in despair and still laugh out loud. There is also the so-called fate and the so-called ancient gods who control all this in the dark. Why are you so high up and in control of everything? Why can you smile and look at life and death in the world? Why will she be cursed by you, and why should the unborn child endure such torture? Everything is because of power. What is the purpose of being strong? So that I can have the power to fight in this desperate moment. Otherwise, I can only watch the person I love die tragically, and I can only smile helplessly. How ironic. Zhang Zizhe has never been so crazy about power like this. At this time, no one will respond to his question. The 5 palace masters will only continue to preside over the totem formation and send the lifeblood of the 9 immortals to the evolution gate bit by bit. At this time, the evolution gate is completely solidified, and they want to carve the lives of the 9 immortals on it. As for the poor child, just bury him. Buried. Zhang Zizhe suddenly remembered that when he first felt the existence of the child, he hid his own face. The feeling of blood connection was so real. It was a new life, a fresh life, the result of his love with Juxian. He was full of curiosity about the outside world. It was so real that he burst into tears when he thought about it. That might be the greatest happiness in the world, the inheritance of life and blood. But how panicked he would be now. Ha. What was puzzling was that he actually laughed at such a skill. But who knew how much anger there was in his smile? They said that they would be famous for all eternity. They said that they had great merits. His name for all eternity, his father's great merits. What he, Zhang Zizhe, wanted was to let them live. How disgusting it was that after killing a family of 3, they could not be reborn, could not reincarnate, and suffered forever, and then rewarded them with a name for all eternity and great merits. Zhang Zizai's body was full of dragon shadows, and his life seemed to be connected to them through his palms. At that moment, blood was connected. Those ugly faces around them would not understand what Zhang Zizai was insisting on at this time. They would not understand what Jushin was insisting on in his madness at this time. Not everything would go according to their plan. Jushin turned into a monster with tremendous fighting power, which was beyond their expectations. And now, when Juxian's body gradually disappeared, when that little life lost its voice, Zhang Zizai was entangled with demonic energy. His scarlet eyes, with a strong and weird smile, looked at the 5 palace masters of the divine sect. At the same time, he also saw Xuanhuan Jushin, who was in control of everything and waiting for the opening of the evolutionary world. At that moment, he actually let out a thunderous roar, and the sky island was shaken by it. Boom boom boom. The huge roar caused the sacrificers to stand unsteadily and stagger. Then, they widened their eyes and suddenly saw that Zhang Zizai, who was stuck on the blood cocoon, suddenly burst open his body and turned into a huge black dragon. Totem beast. The 5 palace masters shouted in shock. They stared blankly at Zhang Zizai, who transformed into a huge black dragon no smaller than the 9 gods, circling in the sky. That was the totem beast that would transform into a god in the legend. That is the dream of all practitioners, and the most fascinating legend between heaven and earth. Now, they looked at this dragon shrouded in black air, with vast divine power and full of destructive breath, and everyone was stunned on the spot. Including Xuanhuan Jushin, they all fell into extreme stagnation. The changes of the 9 gods were beyond imagination, but that was not the appearance of the totem beast, because his totem was not this kind of monster. But Zhang Zizai, surprisingly changed into the appearance of his totem, and really appeared between heaven and earth. At that moment, the aura of the black dragon that destroyed the world swept over, and countless disciples of the god sect, in fear, could not help but kneel on the ground. Jushin, totem beast. The lord of the heavenly god palace trembled in his voice and shouted in great shock. Continue. Open the evolution world. Xuanhuan Jushin reacted the fastest. It was the last moment, and no one could stop her from opening it. The 5 palace masters reacted, and they were only one step away. They injected all their strength into it. For a moment, the moonlight in the sky continued to cover the body of the 9 immortals, and then shot into the gate of the evolutionary world. Without the support of Zhang Zizai's blood and qi, her flesh and blood quickly dissipated in the blood cocoon, and the whole person was about to disappear and be destroyed forever. People looked at all this in confusion and panic. What exactly is that huge and real black dragon, that monster with 9 blood-red eyes? In their panic, the black dragon suddenly opened its eyes, and until this moment, 10 times the aura of destruction descended. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 416. A genius son of a god in the divine seal realm actually transformed into a totem beast here. This is a miracle that has never happened in the history of Origin continent until now. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. This is absolutely impossible, something that no one would believe if you tell it, but it actually happened among the witnesses of tens of thousands of people. The dark dragon that coiled around the god curse and the bronze door was filled with the aura of destruction. When it opened its eyes, the overwhelming demonic energy and evil aura descended, almost covering the entire sky island. This is Zhang Zizai's transformation. How is that possible? What happened? Zhang Zizai and Zhu Shen. For a time, everyone was horrified, and there was an uproar near the altar of origin. But when people were paying attention to this heaven-defying black dragon, the black dragon focused on the blood cocoon. He had already held the blood cocoon in his palm. As he watched, the people inside were about to disappear into ashes and melted into bronze. On the gate, the 5 palace masters are still presiding over the totem array, and countless bloodlines are still implicating the blood cocoon, and at the same time implicating the black dragon. At this critical moment, the black divine dragon was furious, and its huge dragon tail suddenly swept towards the altar of origin. The 5 palace masters were there. There is no need to maintain it anymore. Use all your strength to capture him first, the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace shouted, leading the 4 of them out of the totem formation. The totem array has reached its final stage, and the last part can be completed automatically. Next, they just need to stop Zhang Zizai from causing trouble. Although strange changes have occurred, stop them from opening the evolutionary world. However, the speed and force of the dragon's tail swung over exceeded their imagination. Boom! The 5 palace masters took action one after another. Each of them possesses the power to transcend the divine seal realm, and all of them are at the pinnacle. They are only one step away from the realm of the first god. The majestic display of power by the 5 palace masters aroused cheers from the Shenzong priests. Their totems are all top-notch eternal level totems. When operating at their peak, the power they exert is much more powerful than Zhang Zizai's eternal level totem. Zhang Zizai, no matter what you become, you can't prevent the death of your wife and children. And it will still be painful for countless years, haha. The Lord of the Heavenly God Palace has vented the hatred hidden during this period. They work together to fight against Zhang Zizai. If you tell me, no one will believe it. What no one believed even more was that in the confrontation between the Divine Dragon and the 5 Palace Masters, the Divine Dragon just flicked its tail, but at that moment, it sent the 5 Palace Masters flying away. Bang bang bang. The 5 Palace Masters all smashed to the ground, each one creating a deep pit. There was a large crack on the ground, and the entire Sky Island trembled again. 4 of the Palace Masters were spitting out blood and their faces were pale. On the one hand, it was because they had consumed so much just now, and on the other hand, it was because they underestimated the terrifying power of this black dragon. They still wanted to get up, but the black dragon suddenly sprayed black flames towards them, forming an endless sea of fire and covering them. The black fire burned, and the 5 Palace Masters fought hard and tried to rush out, but they were swept back by the sea of fire. Why is Zhang Zizai so scary? Impossible. This must be impossible. People were stunned as they watched the 5 Palace Masters rolling crazily in the sea of black fire. They could all hear the screams of the 5 Palace Masters. At this time, a Palace Master finally rushed out. The totem array has been formed, she is already dead, everything you do is in vain, haha, that is the Master of the Heavenly God Palace. Although he is the youngest, his cultivation is the strongest among the 5 Palace Masters. The Black Divine Dragon placed the blood cocoon in the palm of his hand, but could not stop the blood cocoon from dissipating. The first god Xuanhuan was originally going to come back, but at this time she was desperately entangled by the 9 gods. Is it in vain? The Black Divine Dragon's palm suddenly split, and a large amount of Divine Dragon aura, which was more than 10,000 times stronger than Zhang Zizai's before, continued to pour into the blood cocoon. The vitality of Shenlong was so strong at this moment that what everyone saw was that the dissipated blood cocoon and the body of the cursor who should have turned into life blood to open the door to the evolutionary world were actually solidifying. This is simply a miracle. Stop him, the first god Xuanhuan was extremely furious. She could crush the 9 gods before, but now she realized how annoying it was that the 9-eyed giant kept blocking her eyes. After hearing the order, only the Master of the Heavenly God Palace escaped from the Black Sea of Fire, while the others were still being burned and suffering unspeakably. His eyes were red, and he used his heavenly book totem to suppress the black dragon head-on. Until now, he still came to stop him, which undoubtedly touched Zhang Zizai's back scale. Roar! The divine dragon was furious and roared into the sky. All the surrounding priests were blown away dozens of feet, and some were even severely injured and spewed blood. Boom! At this moment, people suddenly saw an incredible scene. The black dragon roared, stretched out its dragon claws, and suddenly tore apart all the defenses of the heavenly god palace master, who rushed up, tore his heavenly book totem, and the dark dragon palm instantly pinched the heavenly god palace master. Body. Ah! The heavenly god palace master finally panicked and let out a trembling roar. What responded to him was the indifferent eyes of the dragon and the terrifying power of the dragon's palm. At that moment, the palm contracted, and the scream of the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace stopped abruptly. People saw blood and broken flesh spurting out from the gap between the palms. When the dragon claw swung violently and hit the ground, nothing could be seen clearly. At that moment, there was a complete silence between heaven and earth. Then in the next moment, countless screams rang out in this divine sect. Lord of the Heavenly God Palace. Dead. Oh my God. Dead, Zhang Zizai killed Lord of the Heavenly God Palace. For the divine sect, this is a fact that can make people shudder thousands of years later, but it happened here at this moment. Lord of the Heavenly God Palace died tragically in an instant, and there was no residue left. People forced themselves to think that they had seen it wrong. They shivered and wiped their eyes, but no matter how many times they wiped, this was the fact. The miserable and terrified eyes of everyone were also reality. Ah! Countless people cried and howled. The people of the Heavenly God Palace, one by one, sat down on the ground with pale faces. Yi, Yishan, am I seeing things? Tianyi almost fell to the ground. He saw clearly that his most admired father was crushed. When he asked this question, Yishan sat down on the ground. His body was wet. His eyes were filled with panic and confusion. There were actually many people like them. Between heaven and earth, there was only the black dragon, which was eternally terrifying. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 417. The way the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace died would definitely shake the entire origin continent. It was the tragic death of one of the strongest people between heaven and earth. All this was incredible. He was not killed by a stronger person, but died in the hands of Zhang Zizai. Now the entire divine sect was trembling in trembling and fear, and the priests, divine servants, and holy divine servants were all trembling. Panda, if we can survive this time, we may have to leave the divine section, Bai Shenjin said with a pale face. The four of them were tightly together. How could they not understand at this moment that the time had come to end? Where the boss goes, we will go there. If he dies, we will not survive, but it can be so spectacular, and I have no regrets, Lu Dingxing said seriously. Pandaruo Xiaoyu gently pulled his arm, her eyes were still in infinite tension and trembling. Ling Qingtian and Feng Xiaoao were both in absolute stupor. They looked at each other and saw each other's exaggerated expressions. Ling Qingtian, take the four of them down to Sky Island first, Feng Xiaoao said after thinking. Okay, Ling Qingtian actually had this idea. Although the four of them wanted to watch, they still followed him to leave under his arrangement. Although they didn't know what would happen next, if they stayed here, they might cause trouble for Zhang Zizai. Is this okay? Gu Xianying asked worriedly. Ling Qingtian said, no problem. Anyway, I'm going back to Yanlong Dynasty in 2 days. I'll take them back secretly. They are not the key is Zhang Zizai. Take care. The couple hugged each other, and then Ling Qingtian quickly hid when no one noticed them, and took them down to Sky Island first. Feng Xiaoao was still watching the situation. Someone pulled her sleeve. She turned her head and saw Feng Xiaoxiao with tears in her eyes. She leaned on Feng Xiaoao, and her tears could not stop flowing. Feng Xiaoyao didn't say anything, but patted her shoulder gently and said, "Don't worry, he is a man who defies the heavens, nothing will happen to him." Perhaps just as he said, after Xuanhuan Chushan was entangled by the 9 gods, the 4 palace masters were still unable to escape from Zhangzai's sea of fire, and the Tianshan palace master was killed. It seemed that no one could threaten Zhangzai anymore. He coiled in a circle, holding the blood cocoon in his palm. Both dragon claws had been cut, and endless blood and chi gathered towards the blood cocoon. The blood cocoon absorbed blood and chi crazily, gradually solidified, and emitted an extremely strong beating of vitality. This scene was as if Zhangzai was using his own blood to feed the 2 lives in the blood cocoon. The bronze gate behind them seemed to be damaged at this time and began to dim. The power of the totem formation had been reversed by Zhangzai with his strong blood and chi. However, the extent to which the blood cocoon absorbed blood and chi exceeded people's imagination. This dragon had endless blood and chi, but the blood cocoon still absorbed it crazily, and the amount became larger and larger as it aged. Everything that happened was incredible. People clearly saw that the black dragon, which was so vigorous in the process of feeding with blood and chi, actually began to fail. How vigorous was his blood and chi before? But at this time, his huge dragon body was actually withering and failing, as if he had completely transferred his life and lifespan to this blood cocoon. Perhaps, this is the greatness of a man. It is also the only way for him to truly save the 9 immortals. The whole process was very fast. The Xuanhuan Chushan was still competing with the 9 gods, while Zhangzai's dragon body was gradually shrinking, aging, and losing blood and chi. On the contrary, the blood cocoon became more and more vigorous, and the power contained in it became more and more terrifying. It seemed that 1 or 2 lives were growing vigorously under the nourishment of the dragon's blood and chi. Incredibly, the blood cocoon created by the rebirth art completely transformed into white at this time, like a huge snow-white gem, shining with beautiful and holy fluorescence above the sky, which was completely opposite to the aura of the blood cocoon before. The white cocoon and the blood moon were completely disconnected. Without the support of the totem formation, the brilliance of the blood moon disappeared instantly, and the blood-colored light column finally disappeared. Next, people saw in a daze that the flesh and blood body of the dragon was getting smaller and smaller, more and more exhausted. The surface of the body began to crack, and countless dragon scales began to break. But the eyes of the dragon were gentle and satisfied from beginning to end. Because under the nourishment of his blood and chi, the white cocoon absorbed all of it. Through the connection of blood, he knew that the 2 lives inside were now extremely vigorous. Not only did they survive, but they must have undergone incredible changes. At this time, there was no longer much imprint of the divine spell. People saw that the extremely aged dragon, after shedding 2 drops of eyes, turned into a human form. It was an extremely aged old man who was about to die. It could be said that he had been sucked dry. But there was no regret on his face, because he knew that the person he loved just needed so much blood and chi to be truly reborn. That was the old man, Zhangzai. He didn't know if he would be like this for the rest of his life, but he knew that this time he had inexplicably killed the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace and inexplicably saved them and their mother. Compared with their eternal inability to reincarnate, it was already a big win. So he couldn't help laughing. At this time, I felt that I, who could turn the tide, was a real man and a real father. Other things, it doesn't matter. It's enough for a person to accomplish such a great thing in this life. Zhangzai didn't expect that something he almost forgot would work at this time. That is the mysterious green talisman on his chest. Zhangzai was so old, and the green talisman suddenly shone, and the emerald green light instantly enveloped him. His aging was the consumption of blood and chi, which was different from the aging before Juxian. His was equivalent to being injured, and it was a serious injury. With the nourishment of this immortal talisman, Zhangzai felt extremely comfortable. He almost cried out, it was so cool. He felt that his strength was returning, and the third level of the Divine Seal realm was also returning, and his blood and chi returned to normal. As for the sudden transformation into a dragon before, Zhang Zizai didn't know what happened at all, and he didn't know how to return to that level again. He felt that unless the person he loved was threatened by such a disgusting threat again. To be honest, he would rather never have that dreamlike state again, because it was not something he could control. He didn't want to experience such despair again. People have become numb. When they saw Zhang Ziyu shrouded in green light, he regained his youthful and full figure, just like a day or two ago. They were not surprised at all. After all, his life was like a life of cheating, and he felt like he could never die. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 418. Zhang Zizai felt like a dream. First, the 9 gods suddenly turned into such a terrifying existence. Then, he turned into the dragon. At that time, he felt so powerful that he killed the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace. Then, he nourished them with blood and chi. He didn't expect that they needed so much blood and chi. They were almost sucked dry by him. Fortunately, he had the mysterious talisman and survived. Of course, she must have acted unconsciously. Now, he has recovered his blood and vitality, and the vitality in the white cocoon is also very strong. The totem formation has been destroyed, the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace has died in the battle, and the 4 palace masters escaped after the Sea of Fire disappeared, but they were all seriously injured. At this time, they were all sitting cross-legged on the ground. They could only recover and recuperate to expel the black flames that entered their bodies. The most important thing is that the bronze gate above his head was almost illusory, and then disappeared completely. This shows that the purpose of Xuanhuan Chushan to open this evolutionary world has failed. The blood moon in the sky began to dim just after the ugly hour at this moment, and it had lost the glory of the ugly hour. All this shows that it is impossible for Xuanhuan Chushan to open the evolution world. But next, how to lead them to escape from the anger of Xuanhuan Chushan is a troublesome problem. Zhang Zizai naturally saw that Xuanhuan Chushan's eyes were extremely cold, cold to the extreme, and she seemed to have endless frost on her body. At this time, she glared at Zhang Zizai and felt cold all over, as if she was frozen and unable to move. The death of the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace was a major blow to the divine sect. The failure to open the evolution world was also a major blow to her. However, all this could not eliminate Zhang Zizai's hatred for her. If he did not die today, he would fight her to the death in the future. Although she did not succeed for the time being, her vicious heart almost made Juxian and others doomed. Even if it was almost, even if it did not succeed, this blood feud had been completely planted. Zhang Zizai has never hated someone so much. Zhang Zizai, she roared, her voice so cold that everyone shivered, and they could clearly feel her murderous intent at the moment. Boom! It was not until this moment that she suppressed the 9 gods. Countless dark blue lights formed a cage, completely trapping the 9 gods in it. The 9 gods had been seriously injured long ago, and were madly colliding at this time, but they did not rush out of the cage. People held their breath again. Zhang Zizai's dragon had disappeared, but at this time, Xuanhuan Chushan was still intact. Kill him! Chushan, avenge the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace. Kill him! Kill them! The disciples of the divine sect reacted. In their eyes, Zhang Zizai had already been a monster. Monster, must die. For a time, tens of thousands of people were calling frantically, and more people gathered here. At this moment, almost all the people of the divine sect came. Kill Zhang Zizai. Use the life of this traitor as a blood sacrifice to the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace. People were furious and irritable. How could they know who was going to harm whom at the beginning of today? Who was the perpetrator and who was just a rebel? Who cared? They only cared about the interests of the divine sect and their own interests. They just believed in the ancient gods and were not willing to show mercy to those who were cursed by the ancient gods. As for Zhang Zizai's self-destruction of his future, he was envied by others, and his unruly personality, to them, he was just destroying himself. Who cares? People didn't care. They just wanted Zhang Zizai to die. They also wanted the person in the white cocoon to die. Amid the clamor of the people of the divine sect, Xuanhuan did not disappoint them. After controlling the 9 gods, she appeared in front of Zhang Zizai in the blink of an eye. I have planned for tonight's event for so many years, and you destroyed my hard work. If the evolution world can be opened, it will benefit the people of the entire origin continent. But you, Zhang Zizai, prevented us from creating great achievements. Zhang Zizai, you really don't want to die well. Her tone was cold and she was extremely angry. Great achievements. Taking people's lives, making them suffer eternal torture, and not even sparing the fetus, do you have the nerve to say it is a great achievement? The first god is so ridiculous, is the so-called god also so ruthless and ungrateful? Zhang Zizai sneered, his voice was quite loud, he didn't mind being heard. When he said the 4 words ruthless and ungrateful, the people of the divine sect became even more angry. This damn traitor! As a disciple of the divine sect and a son of the ancient gods, he dared to say such words. Disrespecting God, he deserves death. Kill him! Countless roars and whistles formed a stormy wave, sweeping over. Evolution realm, how could you, a traitor, know the effectiveness of the evolution realm? You ruined the great cause of the people with personal feelings, you are a sinner for all ages. Xuanhuan's voice was still trembling, showing how much regret she had in her heart. However, the opening of the evolution realm requires conditions, and Zhang Zizai is the most suitable candidate, so she can only seduce him step by step. If he and the divine mantra master are not lovers, it would be wonderful, and there is no need to deceive at all. She thought it was a matter of indifference, she didn't know what love was, but she didn't expect that this little love would lead to such a big mistake. The death of one person is the blessing of the people, even the divine mantra master can be freed. You are really wrong. Zhang Zizai was happy and said, then why don't you die, why don't you go to be reborn forever and benefit your people? Talking like fart, go yourself. At this point, how could he be afraid of her? They all had a narrow escape from death. Shut up, Zhang Zizai. People cursed him angrily, starting from the 18th generation of his ancestors, and they were extremely vicious. People don't even want Zhang Zizai to die easily. Forget it, today I will use the blood of your sacrifice to apologize to the people. It was my incompetence that caused the people of Origin Continent to miss out on eternal opportunities. Her face was extremely indifferent. She was high above Zhang Zizai. With her strength, it was easy to destroy Zhang Zizai now. Her eyes were fixed on Zhang Zizai. She hated him so much that he could have been killed in an instant, but she was trembling, thinking about how to kill him in order to relieve her hatred. In the end, she wanted to squeeze Zhang Zizai to death. She gathered a big hand in the void, shrouded Zhang Zizai's head, and immediately covered it. People cheered like a feast. At this moment, between heaven and earth, a sexy voice suddenly sounded, and the man said, "Bitch, if you dare to touch my man, I will find 100,000 wild boars and kill you to death." Such domineering words can only be spoken by the 9 immortals. Hearing her voice, Zhang Zizai, a grown man, couldn't help crying. Of course, these were tears of joy and were precious. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 419. People expected Zhang Zizai to die to apologize, but they didn't expect that just when he was about to die, the white cocoon with extremely strong vitality actually cracked at this time. For a moment, white light was shining, and a majestic and holy aura swept in, covering the entire Sky Island. The Sky Island instantly turned into daytime, and the blood moon in the sky was completely covered and disappeared. The shock brought by such a grand occasion, which lasted from ancient times to the present, would not be worse than when Zhang Zizhe transformed into a divine dragon. In the midst of people's shocked gazes, a stunning woman with a snow-white brilliance all over her body emerged from the cracks in the white cocoon. It's hard to describe in words the beauty and figure of this woman. In fact, her appearance is almost the same as before, but now, she has an aura that can be called God. This makes her high and difficult to touch. She is of supreme nobility and holiness. No one dares to look at her face. They can only lower their heads in her appearance. Only Zhang Zizhe dared to look at her directly. Xuanhuan was a beautiful woman, especially with a noble temperament, but at this time, she was completely overshadowed by the 9 Immortals. At this moment, the 9 Immortals are like the bright moon, while the first god of Xuanhuan is like the light of grains of rice. In comparison, they can only feel ashamed. The feeling of being completely compared made Xuanhuan very uncomfortable, and his mood was simply unbearable. Is this the cursor? Shouldn't she be dead? The Shenzone figures had already arrived, their voices trembling, and they looked blankly at the 9 Immortals who came out of the white cocoon at this time, and then appeared in front of the Xuanhuan prime god in the blink of an eye. They felt that their ideas were rebellious, because what they saw was that the 9 Immortals were more like holy and supreme gods than the first god of Xuanhuan. The eyes of the Xuanhuan primordial god were very gloomy, and she said coldly, "How dare you pretend to be a ghost in front of me after absorbing the energy and blood? As long as you don't die, I will still have a chance during the blood moon next year. Don't even think about leaving again." Zhang Zizhe is still there, and the 9 Immortals are still there, so her evolutionary world can still be opened. Although it is difficult to control Zhang Zizhe to open it willingly, it only takes 1 year, so he may not be able to think of a way. Now, she naturally wants to take down the 9 Immortals. She, the first god of Xuanhuan, has not failed yet. After saying that, in front of everyone's attention, Xuanhuan's first god suddenly took action. She was already in the first god realm. Her power was simply beyond people's understanding. With just a wave of her hand, she could shake the earth, shake the mountains, and cause the earth to collapse. The power! She reached out and turned over, and several pairs of huge palms appeared in the sky, moving towards the 9 Immortals to suppress them, and countless moonlight gathered in them. The 9 Immortals looked completely covered in glory. People finally breathed a sigh of relief and thought that Zhu Xian was pretending to be a ghost at this time. Maybe Zhang Zizhe was the only one who believed in her at this time. At this moment, the 9 Immortals moved, and in the blink of an eye, she actually flashed in front of the Xuanhuan first god. Xuanhuan was stunned. Snap! A crisp sound was simply earth-shattering. What people saw was that under the slap of the 9 Immortals, the Xuanhuan prime god couldn't resist and flew directly into the sky. People even saw the first god Xuanhuan spurting blood. When he flew high into the sky and couldn't help but let out a scream, the 9 Immortals instantly appeared hundreds of feet in the sky. The right cheek is not immune either. She laughed and slapped her again. Xuanhuan prime god screamed again and fell like a comet, crashing onto the altar of origin. Click. The entire altar of origin collapsed at this time. It is hard to imagine how powerful the 9 Immortals are. The altar of origin, which had existed for countless years, was almost a divine object equivalent to the divine pillar of origin, and now it collapsed. Between heaven and earth, listening to the miserable howl of the first god Xuanhuan, there was a dead silence. The shock at this moment was more terrifying than ever. This night, starting with the 9 gods, Zhang Zizhe, and now the 9 Immortals, they exceeded the limits of their imagination time and time again. When they saw that the high-altitude Xuanhuan prime god, who claimed to be a god, was as fragile as a baby under the palm of this cursor, people no longer believed what they saw with their own eyes. They watched blankly, and the cursor smiled, and under the deep pit of the altar of origin, grabbed the hair of the first god Xuanhuan, lifted her up, and knelt in front of him. When women fight, even if they are gods, they still have to pull their hair. Zhang Zizai's scalp went numb and he felt as if his hair was being pulled up. Xuanhuan Chushan looked at her tremblingly and desperately. Her originally beautiful face was now red and swollen. Bang bang bang. Zhu Xian smiled, lifted her hair, and slapped her several times in succession. I let you, an old witch, harm me. I let you harm our family of three, I let you be so cruel, I let you open up your own evolutionary world. She cursed and slapped Xuanhuan Chushan until his mouth was covered with blood. He knelt on the ground and almost collapsed. I was wrong, I was wrong. People didn't expect that the dignified first god Xuanhuan would shed tears at this time. Is apologizing useful? You want us two to never be reincarnated at the gate of evolution. I am a woman who must retaliate. Do you think it will be over with a few slaps on your face? The 9 Immortals' laughter made Xuanhuan Chushan start to tremble. Such a scene simply made the entire Shenzhen kneel on the ground and tremble, including Yishan and Tianyi, and every holy god servant, such as Sikong Jin, Shi Jian, and the others. Even Feng Xiaoao shuddered at this time. Is this still Juxian? This chapter has not ended yet, please click the next page to continue reading. Oh my god, that's Xuanhuan Chushan. People stared blankly. Juxian smiled coldly, she stretched out her middle finger, and carved a word Sao on the left and a word Lang on the left and right cheeks of Xuanhuan Chushan. The two words were shining, and it felt that no matter how many layers of armor there were, they could not be blocked, and they would never disappear. No matter where she went, the two words would shine. Zhang Zizai shuddered, a woman's revenge, so terrible. It was obvious that Juxian didn't want to kill her. This is my curse. You will never be able to clear it for eternity. This curse has another effect. If Zhang Zizai dies with either of them, you will die immediately. After Juxian finished speaking, she chuckled, and she let go of Xuanhuan Chushan's hair. Xuanhuan Chushan continued to kneel, but had lowered his head. Perhaps, he had already felt the curse power of these two words. One is related to Zhang Zizai, and the other is related to Bai Jian. These two curses control her life. Usually, it will be very ugly, so that she will always remember the shame of today. Once Zhang Zizai and the other person die, she will curse and die immediately. Do you know why I don't kill you directly? Because I want my man to avenge this vengeance himself. Just wait. Juxian approached her ear and smiled like a silver bell. The last few words of the conversation were not loud, so the people of Shenzhen didn't know what they were talking about, but it was obvious that Xuanhuan Chushan had a saucy character on his left face and a wave character on his right face, which could not be concealed at all. The entire Shenzhen fell into absolute despair. When Juxian's eyes swept over, everyone was retreating in a hurry, trembling. They already had infinite fear in their hearts. Even Xuanhuan Chushan knelt on the ground with his head down, letting others slaughter him. The myth in his heart had collapsed. What could they do? Then the next second, they saw that the godlike Juxian was kissing Zhang Zizai passionately and even touching him all over. Judging from the situation, it was as if they were going to broadcast it live. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 420. After a long time, she pushed Zhang Zizai away. Zhang Zizai was in a daze, looking at her like a dream. He actually didn't even react. At this time, there were tears on her crystal face. Xiao Baike, I didn't expect you to be so brave today. You gave me everything. I really don't know how I can repay you. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. She was trembling a little when she spoke, and her hands were shaking a little while holding Zhang Zizai's arms. I saw her majestic just now, but now, she seems to be the same as before. What changes happened? Zhang Zizai still seemed to be in a dream. He saw that at this time, the 9 gods had broken away from their restraints, transformed into human form, and returned to their original appearance, but even he himself was different. He walked forward and half knelt in front of the 9 immortals, not like a brother and sister. I didn't expect that there is another life between my life on earth and the life I met you, and that life is extremely long. She said with tears in her eyes. So, fate has been kind to you. Zhang Zizai understood that maybe this life in between was the key to her being so strong now. She looked down at her chest and said, who would have known? The so-called divine curse actually never existed. It was the reincarnation of gods. However, most of them cannot awaken at the age of 30 and can only reincarnate again until they die. The divine curse is not a divine curse, but the reincarnation of a god. Zhang Zizai was stunned. Maybe all of this can explain why she is so strong now. It is definitely because she has successfully reincarnated. Without you, I would not only fail, but also die forever, without reincarnation. Instead of like this. She reached out her hand, gently held Zhang Zizai's face, and kissed him hard on the face. Said, Zhang Zizai, I love you so much. These years with you are the most beautiful memories in my life. I was a god in my previous life, but I lived a boring life. It was you who gave me a brand new life. Jewel belongs to you alone from the beginning of the earth to eternity in the future. Great Zhang Zizai could only smile now. It's really a blessing after all the hardships. I didn't expect that the divine curse would be the reincarnation of a god, and I didn't expect that she would be a god in her previous life. I didn't expect that I could successfully reincarnate her under such an opportunity. Obviously, it sounds like reincarnation is very difficult. Failure to awaken at the age of 30 is a failure. No wonder so many cursed people die at the age of 30. It is not a curse, but a failure in reincarnation. It turns out that there really is a God in this world. Zhang Zizai smiled, he hugged her fragrant body, and said, that's awesome, then from now on, I, Zhang Zizai, can go to bed with God every day. Thinking about it carefully, it feels so good. Besides, is this origin continent starting to go sideways? What are you thinking about every day? Juxian couldn't tell whether to laugh or cry, but her eyes quickly became melancholy. At this moment, Zhang Zizai suddenly felt that the space around him trembled. I have to go, Juxian suddenly said, pouting as she spoke, I may not see you for a long time, or even, I may never see you. Why? Zhang Zizai was stunned. This sentence made him panic. This is the rule of heaven and earth. I can't stay here. When she said this, the space around her was still trembling. Zhang Zizai saw for the first time that the space began to shatter. The rules of heaven and earth. Zhang Zizai was stunned. The decree from the divine realm will arrive soon. I don't have time, Zhang Zizai, be happy and remember what I said. It could be seen that she was already anxious. Zhang Zizai was confused. He grabbed her arm tightly and said quickly, I will listen to whatever you say. You will definitely be able to see me, and we will definitely be able to meet again. As long as you continue to persist, as long as you become a true god, you must come to the dragon sacrifice god realm to find me. Become a god, sacrifice to the dragon god realm, I remember it. Zhang Zizai took a deep breath. He could probably understand that maybe gods also have rules, maybe everything here does not allow a god to stay here. Maybe we really have to be separated for a long time. However, she had infinite confidence in herself, so how could Zhang Zizai not have confidence in herself? He had even killed the Lord of the Heavenly God Palace just now. But even so, when he knew he had to say goodbye, he still felt extremely reluctant to leave. Becoming a god may take a lot of hardships, but you can definitely do it. You must work harder than before, okay? I can't do anything but wait for you to come to me. You must succeed. No matter how much effort you put in, Juxian urged, holding his face in her palms. She was extremely reluctant to let him go, so tears kept falling at this time. I can't let you go. She leaned her head on Zhang Zizai's chest and murmured. Zhang Zizai hugged her tightly. He couldn't bear the sudden separation, but he couldn't resist the sudden rules of heaven and earth. Fortunately, everything was fine, and he was also reluctant to give up, but how could he influence the rules that even she couldn't resist? It turns out that even if you become a god, you are not free. I swear, I will definitely come back to you and won't let you down. Zhang Zizai gritted his teeth and spent all his energy on hugging her, wishing he could crush her into pieces. He knew that in this emergency, these were the words that could reassure her. Not only do you have to come back to me, but you also have to bring our baby back to her mother. She suddenly choked and trembled. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. What? Zhang Zizai was stunned for a moment. You planted the seeds, and you still want to shirk your responsibility. It's your business in the future, she muttered. This damn rule, I can only take a look at my newborn baby, it's really hummed up. She was indignant, but after saying this, a lot of space began to crack. Zhang Zizai's eyes subconsciously turned to the white cocoon. The reincarnation calamity has been transferred to her. I have already sealed it first, and I must take her to find me, otherwise she will die. Zhang Zizai, remember, be a good father and take on the responsibility of being a father. You are not a child anymore, do you know? She lifted Zhang Zizai's ear and said anxiously. Dad, that's their world, calling father, it sounds weird. Reincarnation, imprisonment, death. The amount of information she said was so huge that Zhang Zizai was a little numb. After all, he was young. Seeing his bewildered look, Juxian was so anxious that she cursed, damn it, it's a headache to have a husband who is too young. You are a child yourself, and I want you to take care of one. She was still complaining, but Jushin reminded her as soon as she finished, Holy Lord, if you don't leave within 10 breaths, the laws of the divine domain will monitor it, and it will be a big trouble. He actually called Juxian the Holy Lord, not his sister. There was no time. She finally hugged Zhang Zizai hard. When we meet again, we have to fight for 3 years, okay? Juxian looked at him with her watery eyes. Okay, Zhang Zizai mustered up the courage to agree, but he actually trembled a little, thinking, are all gods so scary? Going to bed, dare to fight for 3 years. They looked at each other in the end. In her eyes, Zhang Zizai saw a strong reluctance and infinite attachment. He was the same. But in an instant, she and the 9 gods suddenly disappeared in front of Zhang Zizai's eyes, and there was no trace of them. Before Zhang Zizai could feel disappointed, the white cocoon next to him suddenly heard the earth-shaking cry of a baby. This loud cry made Zhang Zizai realize that his future life would be full of headaches. I'm afraid I have to take this little thing and embark on the journey of looking for my mother. Last night, I posted a WeChat public account, speculating on the plot. The Lord of the Heavenly God Palace with the most votes is indeed dead. Everyone is awesome, so I added 1 chapter. Remember to open WeChat and follow my account Feng Qingyang. There will be frequent plot speculations and explosive activities in the future. WeChat add friends public account Feng Qingyang follow. Tomorrow will start the 4th volume 6 Great Divine Talismans. The wind and cloud of the origin continent will soon erupt. Where will Zhang Zizai go? Stay tuned.